Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Welcome to the program today. I have to tell you, I am excited because I have on the line with me Ed Brodow, who has been speaking professionally for 28 years. The content he speaks on and what he's really well known for is negotiation. Ed speaks in the U.S. and internationally. He's spoken all over the world. He's based out of California. He has written 6 books, and the one he's most well known for is Negotiation Boot Camp. So, Ed, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We are very pleased to have you here with us today, Ed. Tell us about your speaking business. Who is it that you're speaking to? Who's wanting to know what you have to offer, and what is it you're teaching them?
Well, everybody wants to know how to negotiate because that's what we do all the time. So my audiences tend to be rather diverse. A lot of sales groups, senior executives, purchasing groups, you name it. Every competency has an interest at one point or another in learning how to negotiate, either with clients or with internal groups or with each other or with whoever. So my audiences tend to be rather diverse.
Okay. Now, you said you spoke all over the world, China, Japan, probably Greece, etc. How does your information translate?
Well, it translates very well. I've been very pleased. In fact, even my jokes translate well.
Do they?
They say that you have to be very careful when you go overseas. If you're a speaker, be careful with your jokes because people may not get your jokes and so on. I have found that they love my jokes. One instance comes to mind. I was in Bogota, and I told one of my classic stories, which is really a joke that I converted into a story, and I got a standing ovation. I mean, they just loved it.
Oh, be darned.
It was very, very. It's a great feeling, when you're dealing with people whose first language is not English, and many of them don't speak English at all, so they're getting it through their headsets from a translator, and yet they get the joke and they laugh. It's a good feeling.
That is, I'll bet it is. Can you share with us?
You're doing something. You're doing something right at that point.
Oh, no kidding. Can you share with us that story?
Yeah, I could share. Yeah, well, the story is that it's a story about my uncle who was he lived to be 95, and he was walking, and he lived in a rural area in upstate New York, and he was walking through the woods. He was about 93 years old, and he happens to come upon a frog, and the frog looks up at my Uncle Willie and says, "Hey, old man, if you give me a kiss, I'll turn into a beautiful princess." So Uncle Willie doesn't say anything. He just picks the frog up, sticks it in his pocket, keeps on walking. Well, about a mile down the road, the frog sticks its little head out of Uncle Willie's pocket and says, "Hey, old man, what about that kiss? Remember, I'll turn into a beautiful princess." And Uncle Willie says, I've been thinking about that. And frankly, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog.
No.
The point of the story is that you have to always look at in a negotiation. You have to look at it from the way the other person is looking at it. Now, you may see it in one light, and they're looking at it from a totally different perspective. So you have to understand their perspective.
Interesting. That's a great story. I can see why they laughed. Because it's definitely not expected.
Everybody laughs at that. I told that to. I was in a car with my friend and his wife recently. And I told the story, and his wife just practically fell out of the car. She was laughing so hard. It's a great story.
It is a great story. Well, let's
and in Spanish too. I mean, they got it in Spanish, so or whatever language.
Let's talk about your negotiation information for a little bit. First of all, how did you become the expert? What did you do in your life to be the expert, to be able to go out and teach that?
Well, in one of my lives, I was in the computer business, and I used to sell computers for IBM. I was a sales manager for Litton Industries and Singer Business Machines. I had my own company for a while. And one of the things that I excelled at, in addition to closing sales, was negotiating contracts. I was very good at that. So my background is real hands-on, experience negotiating large contracts.
How did you get good at that? Did you just sort of learn it as you went?
How did I get good at it? I grew up in Brooklyn in a very bad neighborhood. That's how I got good at it. It was a kind of situation where you either negotiated well or you got killed.
Well, that's
so I learned, people would, they used to come at me 3 or 4 at a time, and I had to, find a way to talk my way out of it.
Well, it's amazing how adversities like that can really pay off, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. So I had from an early age, I had an awareness of how important it is to be able to make deals.
Now, when you're talking to groups, can you give us an example, for the listeners to hear what it is you're teaching them? So, because I'd like to give them you certainly don't have to give away the farm, but I'd like for the listeners to hear some of your tips and techniques on that.
Well, first of all, I believe that negotiation is not a matter of tricks. And people, they have all these different tricks, do this trick and that trick. I think it's really more of attitude and how you look at it and what's going on. I tell people that you have a negotiation inside your own head. You think you're negotiating with the other person, but the main negotiation is the one you have with yourself. So, for example, one of the main tips that I give people is that you should always be willing to walk away from a negotiation, which means you have to be able to say to yourself, if I can't get the deal that I want, I'm going to go somewhere. I want to do something else. I have an alternative. So always have alternatives. And that's something I find that most people are not willing to do. People are, let's say you're negotiating for a job. People have a sense that, I need the job so badly, I better give in to whatever, I better not be too assertive. My attitude is just the opposite. You have to set the stage for what you want, and if you can't get it, you know that you have an alternative. You have another job that you can look for. So you're not dependent on this job, and you can say, hey, look, I'm sorry, but this doesn't meet my needs.
That's a great tip. What do you? I'm sure you've been aware of the Iran negotiations that's been going on, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the negotiations that went on there?
One of my clients I gave a keynote speech recently, and someone in the audience asked me about that. I don't usually like to get into these kinds of discussions, but they asked me, and I told them, and what I told them was very simple. I said, one of the things that I teach is that when you give something up in a negotiation, you always have to get something back. You don't just give things away for the hell of it. You want to do it strategically. So the idea is, if I give you this, will you give me that? And it seems to me that basic principle has been denied by us in this negotiation, where we are just giving things away. Sort of the attitude is, we don't want to offend Iran. We want to, I don't understand that. And I'm talking specifically about the sanctions.
Right.
And that's one area where I agree with Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, if he were doing it, he would add on that he would have more sanctions. And that's the way I would have done it. I would have really hit them over the head with those sanctions. Instead, what we did was we said, okay, we'll remove the sanctions. Well, that was the end of the negotiation right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm extremely critical of what has taken place, the way it was done, at least the way we were told it was done, because we never really know exactly what happened.
No, we don't.
I'm always very skeptical about what comes out in the news media, because you never really know what the real story is.
No, they only let you know what they want you to know. or what they want you to believe. I really believe
or what
that.
they believe, or what they believe,
Yeah.
which may or may not be true. So that's the thing that's always fascinated me about history. We read about history, such and such happened. Columbus discovered America. Who knows what really took place? What comes down to us is filtered and secondhand, third hand, fourth hand. There are certain situations in history. I would love to be there. I wish I could have been there just to see what really took place. In our life, in our time, the big thing is the Kennedy assassination. I was just talking about somebody about that the other day. Who knows what really happened with the Kennedy assassination? We'll never really know exactly what happened. And wouldn't it be fascinating to know these things? But we don't. So there it is.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Ed, you said some other things that you speak on is life balance, correct?
Yeah, I wrote a book called Beating the Success Trap, and it's subtitled Negotiating Your Own Path to Success. And in this book, I challenge the conventional meaning of success, and I propose my own definition of success, and I try to show people how life can be a lot simpler and more enjoyable with a slight change in attitude.
And give us an example of that, then. I'd like to hear that.
Well, the basic, the success in our culture is defined as fame, fortune, money, influence, power, that kind of thing. I don't think, people who have those things they don't necessarily feel successful. In fact, most of them, from what I've been able to discover, at some point in their life, they say, wait a minute, I thought when I got all of this fame and fortune that I would feel better about myself, and I don't. So what I propose as a definition of success is that right here and right now, you're doing the things that are meaningful to you. What is meaningful to you on a day-to-day basis? Because that's all. Life is what we do from day to day.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing today? You get up in the morning. Do you look forward to getting up in the morning? What are you doing from 9 to 10 and 11 to 12? And that's what success is. And if you're doing the things that have meaning for you, then it doesn't matter whether you're rich or famous. That's all really. It's really not important in the final analysis. The people who are really content, people who would say, I am content with my life, I am happy, I feel successful, these are people who are spending their time in meaningful pursuits.
I've talked to a fair amount of people who always, or not always, but often ask, I just don't know what my purpose is. And I think that what you said about something being meaningful is almost synonymous with purpose, wouldn't you say?
Well, Joseph Campbell says that the question is, not really, what is the meaning of life or what is my purpose in life, but the real issue is experiencing life. It's about the experience, and we think, what is it about? Do I have a purpose? What's my purpose? Who knows? You can spin that around any way you want and say my purpose is this. But what it really boils down to is, what are you experiencing? Are you experiencing life in a way that is meaningful to you? That's what's really important. Because the universe, as far as the universe is concerned, your life has no purpose. The universe doesn't. That's not the way the universe functions. It's all about experience and being present. And being able to take things as they come and experience them and enjoy them. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to hear your take on that. That's terrific. Lastly,
I think people get hung up on this thing. Well, I don't my purpose in life, and I don't. Let's face it. Most people don't have a definable purpose. But that's okay. That's okay. And to get to become obsessed with that, I think is it's a recipe for unhappiness.
Oh yeah, well, I have found that with some people that I know, definitely. The other thing you said you speak on, I think, is a presentation.
Presentation skills. Well, I used to be an actor. I still am, actually. I did a movie last year. But I've been a film and stage actor and television actor for many years. And I was fortunate enough to work with people like Jessica Lange and Ron Howard and Christopher Reeve. So I had a very successful career as an actor, and in the process, I learned certain presentational skills that have been invaluable to me as a speaker.
Uh-huh.
And I see other speakers doing things that to me they're second nature to me because of my acting training. So at a certain point in my career, my clients were starting to ask me to share those skills that I learned as an actor. So I put together a program, and every so often I get asked to do that, and people love it. It's because it's not the usual. How do you make a speech presentation? It's all geared from an actor's point of view.
Interesting. Yeah, I spoke with Mark Schulman a while back. He's a professional drummer for Cher, Pink, and some others, and he went into professional speaking as a second career, and he took acting lessons and speaking lessons and such to better himself. And I've heard a pretty fair amount of people talking about taking acting lessons for that. So that's interesting to hear.
Well, I highly recommend it. Not only for that, but for personal growth as well. I mean, there are things that my emotional life is so much richer as a result of having had acting lessons and of working in the theater. I can't begin to tell you the many benefits that I've had personally. It's very enriching, and from a presentational point of view, I think it's the greatest thing you can do.
I'll bet so. Well, Ed, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. How can people get a hold of you if they want to know more or have you speak?
Well, my website is my last name, Brodow, Brodow.com, and my email is ed@brodow.com.
Okay. Very easy. Well, Ed, thank you for sharing with us your information. That was fascinating.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.